Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of the hour. Iran says it seeks a diplomatic solution on its nuclear program, but warns it will respond to any US military strike as a new round of talks is set for Geneva. Tehran calls even a limited attack an act of aggression after President Donald Trump says he is considering military options. President Trump condemns the US Supreme Court after it strikes down his sweeping tariffs, saying he will turn to other trade powers and licensing authorities. In a social media post, he claims the court has accidentally and unwittingly given him greater strength and vows to use alternative tariff tools. The killing of Jalisco New Generation cartel leader El Mencho triggers a wave of violence across Mexico, plunging some areas into chaos. The 59-year-old fugitive headed one of the country's fastest-growing criminal networks, trafficking fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine into the United States. US forces leading the anti-jihadist coalition are set to complete their withdrawal from Syria within a month, according to multiple sources. The United States, which deployed troops back in Kurdish-led forces against ISIS, have already begun leaving a major base in the region. French President Emmanuel Macron calls on the European Union to step up pressure on Russia and adopt a new sanctions package over the war in Ukraine. The proposed 20th round of EU sanctions has been blocked by Hungary, with talks set to continue in the coming days. Ukraine will need an estimated $588 billion to rebuild after 4 years of Russia's invasion, according to a new assessment by the World Bank. The figure is nearly 3 times the country's annual economic output, underscoring the scale of damage. Reform UK unveils what it calls radical plans to tackle immigration, promising a new agency to deport thousands of illegal migrants and to withdraw from human rights treaties if it wins power. The party, led by Nigel Farage, is currently leading in opinion polls ahead of an election due by August 2029. The Netherlands swears in 38-year-old centrist Rob Jetten as the country's youngest and first openly gay prime minister. Jetten takes power after a narrow October election victory over Geert Wilder's far-right Freedom Party. Ukraine has regained 400 square kilometers of territory, including 8 settlements along a key section of the southern front line since the end of January. These recent gains in the southeastern Dnipropetrovsk region mark a rare victory for Ukrainian forces in what has otherwise been a slow and costly conflict, with Russia making only modest advances in the past 2.5 years as the war nears its 4th anniversary. Ukraine is pushing back against pressure from the US and Europe to reach a peace deal, especially amid claims that the country is losing ground. Meanwhile, Germany's Chancellor Merz has praised Ukraine's astonishing resistance, pointing out that Kiev's efforts have been far more successful than many expected. At the same time, Russia's vital oil infrastructure continues to face escalating threats from Ukrainian drone strikes. Joining us now on this is Professor Veselin Popovsky, a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Popovsky. Some reports of Ukraine gaining back territory from Russian forces. How do we believe this information? 400 square kilometers of territory, including 8 settlements along the key east-southern front line since the end of January. Why has this change happened? Are we seeing new momentum be formed?
Well, for various reasons, Thomas. First and foremost, Ukraine over time gained a lot of experience in fighting, and their military are very committed, because you can why they are there. They are told to go and die. They have no motivation whatsoever, where Ukrainians are defending their families, their lives, their country. And for that matter, the motivation definitely helps. But also the assistance that Ukraine received from Europe, most of the European countries, but also Canada, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and other countries, is there to help them. So over time, we will see more of those. Ukrainians taking back their territory, and Russia in full disaster, domestic and international, isolated. Over time, will lose more and more territory. I think we will see recapturing of land here and there. Obviously, Ukraine is also on the negotiating table. They prefer to reach a ceasefire and to stop this war. But again and again, we see Russia not cooperative and continuing this useless and basically suicidal for Russia war. They should definitely think about what's next. And I don't see much prospects for Russia here. The economy is collapsing. Over the last reports, it's really in misery. Although Putin still has some money to fight, let's put it this way, but that means more misery for the simple, regular Russian people. So it's one direction, but how long it will take, because Putin still has money to fight, we don't know.
What are your views on this new figure that's come out of the World Bank today, Professor Popovsky? $588 billion needed to rebuild Ukraine after 4 years of war. How long will that infrastructure take to rebuild? Where will the money come from? What's your reaction to that?
Yes, it's huge, obviously. It's 4 years of war with a lot of losses of life, of jobs, of projects. We can imagine how Europe looked like after the Second World War in a similar situation. What was then in Germany, but also France, Belgium, and Eastern Europe, Poland. These are all places were destroyed. But again, we know that at the time the Marshall Plan did pretty quickly. I think it was over a few years. And well, not all, but gradually there will be a reconstruction in Ukraine. The money will come from, well, all the Russian frozen assets to start with will be used to rebuild Ukraine. And these are about 300 billion. And there will be some loans as well. I guess construction companies will bid for projects and they will go. But there is big future here. I would probably think this as an investment, because Ukraine will become a center for European security policy one day with its very well-built army. It will be the forepost for European defense. Over time, Ukrainians proved that they are people that could be trusted, they are resilient. So any investment in Ukrainian infrastructure, in Ukrainian business, including exploration of mineral resources, all of that will come. I'm not skeptical about that. Money will be found for Ukraine, for sure.
Okay, Professor Popovsky, do stay with us as we turn over to North America next, where we head to Mexico following the killing of cartel lord El Mencho, which of course has caused widespread disruptions across the country. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has said the most important priority right now is to guarantee peace and security for the entire population of Mexico. She confirmed that the country woke up without any roadblocks following the killing of El Mencho. Mexico's defense minister says crucial information on his whereabouts came after a visit from his romantic partner. He also says Mexico has deployed 2,500 troops after the drug lord was killed. Meanwhile, Security Secretary Travilla says intelligence sharing with the US Northern Command has been extremely important to the operation, but authorities say coordination remains key to maintaining stability. The authorities are now assessing possible successors to the founder of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. The Mexican army carried out the operation with US intelligence support, and a multi-million-dollar reward had been on offer. Attention has now turned to his daughter, Jessica Johanna Oseguera Gonzalez, and his son, Ruben Oseguera Gonzalez, who is serving a life sentence in prison. Other possible contenders include his stepson, Juan Carlos Valencia Gonzalez, and senior lieutenants. Violence flared in parts of the country as security forces moved to restore order. Joining us once again on this is Professor Popovsky. This situation where we have seen the founder and a longtime leader of this extremely powerful cartel, El Mencho, he's been killed by Mexican authorities as far as we know. The Mexican government says that there was no help from the United States as far as federal officials are confirmed. However, now there is a worry about a future successor, and of course this violence which is erupting throughout Mexico. Does this show the flaws in assassinating kingpins in the style that the Mexican government chose to go through with?
As I understand, it was an attempt to arrest him, and there was an exchange of fire between the bodyguards and those who went to arrest him. And then, yes, he died from injuries on the way to hospital. So it's not really an execution. It's not, the purpose was to arrest him rather than to kill him. And in fact, he was in the hands of the military who are trying to save his life by driving him to the hospital. So let the factology correct here. It's not, simply murder. He was targeted, of course, to be arrested, and El Mencho is the biggest, the most wanted man in Mexico. Let's put it this way. The reaction is expected, by the way, every time when there is such an arrest or murder. The cartels respond in violence, and they basically try to block roads, like to disrupt the lives of many Mexicans. Somehow it's a tactic to retaliate and to also demand the release of some prisoners. And it happened in the past, by the way. The Mexican government did let the family members of those cartels to be freed usually. So there will be some negotiations here as well. But yes, unfortunately in Mexico, the security situation can continue to be very fragile. Cartels are still very powerful. The authorities don't have enough capacity to contain all the law and order.
Okay.
So that could be places to be for tourists at the moment. Yes.
Professor Popovsky, thank you so much for taking the time. As always, it's a great pleasure to speak to you. We now turn from Latin America over to the United Kingdom, where Britain's Reform UK party has unveiled what it calls radical plans to tackle illegal migration that reportedly includes the creation of a new deportation agency modelled on US immigration enforcement. At a recent press event in Dover, the Populist Party's Home Affairs Policy Chief, Zaya Youssef, has described current migration levels as a national security emergency. Youssef has shared plans for a new deportation command, claiming that it would have the capacity to remove up to 288,000 people a year. Moreover, the party, who also wishes to bring an illegal migration mass deportation act that would legally compel the government to deport undocumented migrants and limit judicial intervention. The governing Labour Party has pushed back, saying it is already addressing the issue. Since winning the 2024 election, Labour says it has removed nearly 60,000 people with no legal right to remain. Official data shows that while overall net migration fell last year, small boat arrivals have risen. More than 41,000 asylum seekers crossed the Channel in 2025, making it the second highest annual total on record. Joining us now on this is Peter Baum, the editor of the Weekly Blitz. He joins us live from London. Peter, reform, of course, its key policy, tackling migration, stopping the boats per se. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants in the United Kingdom right now, something which has been at the focal point of headlines throughout the country. This key issue is seen to have driven Reform UK's rise across the United Kingdom. However, ICE, Trump isn't very popular in the United Kingdom. Around the world, we've seen the operations in Minnesota, which of course led to the deaths of 2 people. Do you expect Farage to be popular with a policy that is directly modelling after the United States immigration enforcement in the United States?
Hi, Thomas. Yes, well, reform is riding higher in the polls at the moment, and Farage, according to the polls, is the most popular UK politician as party leader. Now, this all depends. We know that polls can be wrong. We saw that in the run-up to the US presidential election, where every poll and legacy media, the CNNs, the ABCs, the MSNBCs of this world, got it absolutely wrong. If the polls are to be believed, this policy of the Reform Party is gaining momentum, and we have local elections coming up in May, in a couple of months' time. So the proof of the pudding, Thomas, will be how the local election results go before the national election, which doesn't have to be for another 3 and a bit years. So the results of the local elections will prove just how popular the Reform Party is, and what kind of impact this formalised policy regarding stopping immigration and deporting illegal immigrants is amongst the UK population.
Okay, Peter, do stay with us as we turn over to our next story. We have some breaking news coming in from South America, where Panama officially published its Supreme Court decision annulling the concession granted to Hong Kong-based CK Hutchison Holdings to operate 2 major ports on the Panama Canal. The court had ruled in January that the 1977 contract allowing Hutchison to manage the ports of Balboa on the Pacific side and Cristobal on the Atlantic was unconstitutional. With the decision now in the official gazette, it takes full legal effect and is not subject to appeal. The ruling brings a definitive end to nearly 3 decades of Hutchison's involvement in operating the strategically vital canal ports. We move on now from that breaking news, and images shared on social media show Iranian students staging anti-government protests at multiple universities as the new semester began. Footage from the Faculty of Foreign Languages and Literatures in Tehran shows students chanting "Death to the Dictator" and "Women, Life, Freedom," a slogan that became central during nationwide unrest. Separate videos from Al-Zahra University depict female students holding rallies, chanting against the leadership and attempting to set fire to the flag of the Islamic Republic. According to local reports and local media posts, protests also took place at Sharif University of Technology, where demonstrators condemned Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. State-affiliated outlets reported clashes between protesters and pro government Basij students groups who often assist security forces during unrest. The demonstrations coincided with a 40-day mourning ceremony for those killed in last month's anti-government protests, described as among the deadliest episodes in domestic unrest history since the 1979 revolution. Rights groups said rallies were also reported at Basij and Amir Kabir universities in Tehran, Mashhad University in the northeast, and in the western town of Abdanan. The renewed campus protests come amid heightened tensions between Iran and the United States, despite ongoing diplomatic talks. Peter Baum joins us once again to discuss the ongoing and developing situation inside Iran. Peter, of course, a lot of these young people, they didn't know what it was like prior to the 1979 revolution, which toppled the Shah. Of course, this shows that people of Iran are still going out protesting in the streets, despite reports of upwards of 20,000 people being killed in last month's protests. What does this say about the attitude of the people there, and are we truly seeing something that signals the Iranian regime being in its most unstable state since the 1979 revolution?
Yeah, I think we are, Thomas, and let's just reflect for a moment. We had the situation where there was a popular uprising in the streets some weeks ago that was met with the most brutal clampdown by the totalitarian theocrats ruling Iran at the moment. We don't know how many thousands of Iranians were killed during that clampdown, but indeed thousands were. And for a while, it seemed as if the regime had the upper hand. And in the last 72 hours, we've seen the protests rear themselves again through the very brave young people on the university campuses and the women of Iran coming out. It's yet to be seen whether the regime will crack down similarly to the way they cracked down on the protesters a couple of weeks ago, killing thousands. What is very frustrating for the protesters is the feedback, the statements being made from Donald Trump. They know that he's building up his military, and yet these just seem threats. What the protesters want is action. We know that there are talks going on, I think on Thursday. I think the Iranians are just stalling for time. But if the Iranians clamp down again, as they did previously on the protesters, I don't think Trump will have any option than to go in as he said he would. But one has to just look in admiration and feel for those very brave people who are thoroughly sick and tired of an Islamic totalitarian theocracy that's been ruling them for the last 47 odd years. They want change. Somehow or other, I think they will get it.
Peter Baum, thank you so much for joining us. Great pleasure to talk to you here on NewsX World. We stay in West Asia for our next story. Iraq has announced that Ankara has agreed to take back Turkish citizens among the ISIS detainees transferred from Syria. This comes as part of ongoing efforts to manage the detainee issue following the defeat of ISIS in the region. The agreement signifies a significant step in addressing the complex issues of ISIS fighters and their nationalities, with many foreign nationals still held in Syria. Turkey has agreed to repatriate these detainees as part of broader diplomatic discussions between Iraq and Turkey. The transfer of detainees is seen as a critical element in stabilizing the region and ensuring justice for the victims of ISIS. Let's take a listen in to what the Iraqi foreign minister had to say on this.
ويواصل العراق اليوم دوره الفاعل في مكافحة الإرهاب من خلال تعاونه الوثيق مع شركائه الإقليميين والدوليين. ويجدد العراق دعوته إلى جميع الدول لتحمل مسؤولياتها القانونية والأخلاقية في استعادة الإرهابيين من مواطنيها ومحاكمتهم داخل أراضيها.
Mourners gathered in eastern Afghanistan to pray for villagers killed in overnight airstrikes by Pakistan as tensions between the two neighbours escalated sharply. Pakistani officials said the operation targeted militant hideouts and killed dozens of fighters, describing it as a necessary security measure along the volatile border. But residents in Basij district say civilians were among the dead. Listen in to what the residents are saying.
نو دغه دیارلس شهیدان جسدونه هم راوښکلي وو او دغه څلور جسدونه لا ورک دي اوسه پورې نو د دې په لټنه کې وو هله دا ماشینان رالل بوکلیان یې راللي دا خاورې م واړولې راواړولې که نه نو خپله تسلي مو ځان ته داسې ورکړله چې د دغه خبره یو موجودې که نو د دې فاتحه د دې جنازه هر څه موږ بیا
او دې کې مې یو تره زوی دی اوښې مې کېږي او یو مې خور وه او دوه کوچنیانو د هغې زامن وو هغې عمرونه چې دي د 3 کلونو نه ښکته دي او ډېرو خلکو هڅې وکړې دغه یې وکړل اوسه پورې ورک دي پیدا شوي
څه جنازې م همداسې د مړو وکړلې او څه م همداسې وکړلې او اوس هم دا فاتحې اخیستل کېږي دا ټول خلک را روان دي او مړي نه پیدا کېږي ټول خلک خفه دي.
Separately, Pakistani officials said the operation targeted militant hideouts, adding that dozens of fighters were killed. Islamabad described the strikes as a necessary security measure along the volatile frontier. However, a Taliban government security source rejected Pakistan's claim that at least 80 terrorists were killed. Reports called the figure false and imaginary. Meanwhile, Afghan officials said that at least 18 people were killed in the strikes, including children. Next, we turn to the United States. New York City is experiencing a major winter storm, with Times Square blanketed in snow as the city braces for more severe weather. The storm has already caused significant disruptions across the 5 boroughs, with heavy snow, icy roads and freezing temperatures affecting travel and daily life. City officials are urging residents to stay indoors as plows work to clear the streets. Emergency services are on high alert and major flights at major airports have been delayed or cancelled. This winter storm is expected to last through the day, bringing more snow and hazardous conditions. Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.